I think of all the emotional experiences, toxic shame is one of the most difficult to work with. And I'm not just saying this based on the work that I do with clients, it's based on my own personal experience. I mean, so much of the work that I have done on my own journey is based around resolving toxic shame from my childhood. And it's just so pervasive. I mean, it really impacts on your self worth, on your identity, and it really affects the way that you engage with the world, particularly in your relationships. Shame is a concept that is introduced to us in childhood, and a certain amount of shame is actually required. I mean, children need to understand the difference between acceptable and unacceptable behaviors. So, when a parent chastises a child in a very gentle manner and explains that something they've done is unacceptable, the child may feel a little bit of shame because of their behavior, but that's normal. And then the parent talks them through it, and it's all done very compassionately. So, a child learns what normal shame is and also knows that it is not reflective of their character, whatever it is that they've just done. It's basically just an indication of their behavior. Whereas when a person is personally attacked in some way, so for example, if a child is told that they're useless or they're evil or that they're always bad, it feels like as if this is an inherent reflection of their character. And a child is very much forming their own identity, and they are very malleable, they are very impressionable, and when they hear something continuously, they assume that that's the truth about them and they embody this identity. So a child will grow up believing that they are ugly or useless or evil, and consequently have a very low sense of self-worth and feel a sense of shame over who they actually are, feel a sense of shame over their identity in general. And as you can imagine, this makes it very difficult for you to show up in any aspect of your life because you're continuously carrying this identity that isn't yours to carry. A child that grows up in an environment which is abusive or neglectful tends to have a level of self-repulsion that you just cannot imagine. I mean, there is this sense of emptiness, there is this sense of being so unhappy with yourself that you can barely be in your own skin. And this can manifest itself as being very angry with the world, being very angry with other people, being very scared. It can also result in eating disorders, in substance abuse, in depression, in anxiety, in perfectionism, in people pleasing. It shows up in so many aspects of our life. And again, it's all driven by this deep rooted sense of being inadequate, of being just completely worthless. People who struggle with shame issues tend to make very poor decisions in life and really struggle with relationships. I mean, they have a tendency to project their feelings of shame onto the other person. They assume that the other person thinks the same of them as they think of themselves, and so can become very defensive within relationships and find it really difficult to connect with other people at a very meaningful and deep level because they're always scared. They're always afraid that people will see them exactly as they are in this identity that doesn't even belong to them in the first place. A person who struggles with shame is hyper vigilant for any type of criticism, any type of put down, and consequently when something neutral is said or when an observation is made, they tend to take it on board as being very much about them. So people who struggle with shame tend to take things very personally. So what can you actually do about it? Well, if shame is having a major impact on your life, it's so important that you get professional help with it, with a therapist, because in order for you to tackle some of your deep rooted core beliefs, it needs to be done in a very compassionate manner. It's not just about challenging the thoughts, because this really goes deep. It's about, I suppose, engaging with your core beliefs about yourself and about the world. It's also about helping you sit with and tolerate some of the bodily sensations and emotional experiences that accompany shame and that can feel so intolerable, can feel so uncomfortable and so distressing. Acknowledging the source of your shame and being able to observe the way that it impacts on your day-to-day life is really important. Being a witness to your own experience, learning how to be in relationships, learning how to engage with people in a new way as opposed to projecting all of your pain onto them. And there's so much more when it comes to recovering from the experience of shame. If you would like to find out more about the various steps required to recover from childhood toxic shame, get in touch with me. On the website is fundamentals.ie.